Today we'll be discussing Islam in Pakistan. My name is Gavin, and along with Cara, I will be talking about the history of Islam in Pakistan, as well as the key demographic features of the country. Johnny will then analyse the constitution of Pakistan, while David will be looking at human rights, and Kitty will conclude with a brief discussion of topical events.
Pakistan is the second largest Muslim nation in the world and the only country established in the name of Islam. It was founded in 1947 as a homeland for Indian Muslims. The resurgence of Indian Islam began with Sir Syed Ahmad Khan and the Aligarh movement of educational, religious and political reforms, which insisted on political autonomy and protection of the rights of Indian Muslims. The All Indian Muslim League worked with the Hindu-dominated Indian National Congress for independence from the British, but became convinced that the religious, cultural and political interests of the Indian Muslim community could not be safeguarded in a post-independence India dominated by a Hindu majority. From its inception in 1947, the idea of Pakistan was a contested ideological matter. Having lost their privileged status when the British replaced Indian rulers, Indian Muslims divided in response to a deepening cultural and political insecurity under colonial rule. It adopted the goal of creating a separate state for Muslims. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the founder of Pakistan, envisioned the new state to be a liberal Muslim democratic state. Major debates since independence have concerned the appropriate role of Islam in the state, the use of Islamic law, and the Islamization of society and economy. Islamization measures were introduced between 1977 and 1988 by Zia-ul-Haq, including hudud punishments, compulsory collection and distribution of zakah and the usher taxes, establishment of Sharia courts, partial elimination of interest from the banking system, and revision of school textbooks to reflect on Islamic slant.
Approximately 97% of Pakistanis are Muslim, and the remaining 3% are either Christian or Hindu. The majority are Sunnis following the Hanafi school of Islamic law. Between 10 and 15% are Shias, mostly Twelvers. Privately managed mosques and madrasas have provided a base for an independent and often oppositional role by the religious establishment. Pakistan's latest estimated population is 207,774,000, making it the world's sixth most populous country. Pakistan has experienced significant urbanization in the last 20 years, leading to the creation of a number of megacities, including Karachi, Lahore and Faisalabad. Pakistan has a multicultural and multi-ethnic society, with 6 main languages spoken in the nation: Punjabi, Pashto, Sindhi, Saraiki, Urdu and Balochi. The largest ethnic group in Pakistan are the Punjabis. Pakistan is also host to one of the largest refugee populations in the world, as well as a very young population.
Following gaining independence in 1947, Pakistan were confronted with the challenges of drafting a constitution for the state. The Objectives Resolution was the byproduct of the Constitution Assembly in 1949, which highlighted the fundamental principles that were to govern the constitution. One of the defining principles held that Muslims would be able to structure their lives according to Islamic law. The Assembly allowed political institutions themselves to judge whether or not their law respected Islam. Subsequently, Article 25 of the 1956 Constitution required the state to legislate in accordance with Islamic law, but Article 23 explicitly stated such a right was not to be interpreted or enforced by the courts. The 1956 Constitution was soon replaced by the 1962 Constitution, which established a presidential form of government. For any amendment to the Constitution to be made, 2/3 of the majority of the Assembly had to pass the bill and send it to the President, who would then either declare the bill valid or void. It advocated government with only one house, and the members of the National Assembly were elected by the National Democrats. Judges of the High Courts were to be elected by the President upon the advice of the Chief Justice, although the President was not bound by such advice. The 1973 Constitution replaced the 1962 Constitution. Considered more rigid and more Islamic constitution than its predecessor, it declared Pakistan an Islamic republic with the head of state elected by a parliament in joint sitting. It also provided that the legislature would now be bicameral, with a lower house, the National Assembly, and a higher house, the Senate. The Constitution also provides for the election of judges in the same manner as the 1963 Constitution, and declares the independence of the judiciary from the executive.
Religious discrimination against Hindus, Christians, atheists and Ahmadi Muslims is a serious issue in modern-day Pakistan. A recent event which made headlines in Pakistan was the forced conversion of 500 Hindus to Islam. On the 25th of March, over 500 Hindus who were deported from India to Pakistan were forced to convert to Islam at gunpoint. Only 5 days previous to this, the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva expressed concerns over the atrocities against minority Hindus in the province. Malala Yousafzai is a Pakistani activist for female education and winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. She is known for her activism in regards to women's education in Pakistan, where the Taliban have been known to try and stop girls attending school. In 2012, in response to her activism, the Taliban shot her in the head. This sparked an international outpour of support for Malala. Following her recovery, she became a prominent activist for the right to education whilst based in Birmingham in the UK. She founded the non-profit organisation the Malala Fund. In 2014, she was awarded for the Nobel Peace Prize at age just 17. This made her the youngest ever winner of the prize.
Human rights are those fundamental freedoms and entitlements that each person possesses by virtue of nothing more than the fact that they are human. These rights are set out in Articles 8 to 28 of the Constitution of Pakistan and include, among others, the right to life, liberty and equality. However, while in theory the Constitution protects these fundamental rights, in practice the events of the last number of years tell a different story. Journalists have increasingly had to practice self-censorship after numerous attacks by security forces and militant groups in retaliation for critical articles. Human Rights Watch have received several credible reports of intimidation, harassment and surveillance of various NGOs by government authorities. The government used the regulation of INGOs in Pakistan's policy to impede the registration and functioning of international humanitarian and human rights groups. At least 19 people remained on death row in 2017 after being convicted under Pakistan's blasphemy law and hundreds await trial. In April, a mob dragged Michelle Khan, a 23-year-old student in the University of Mardin, from his dormitory and shot him dead over accusations that he made blasphemous comments against Islamic injunctions. In May, a 10-year-old boy was killed when a mob tried to storm a police station in Balochistan and to attack a man held on blasphemy charges. Violence against women and girls, including rape, honour killings, acid attacks, domestic violence and forced marriage, remain a serious problem. Pakistani activists estimate there are about 1,000 honour killings every year. Honour killings occur when a woman chooses to be with another man who she was not assigned to by her family. On a positive note, the first bill safeguarding the rights of transgender persons was introduced in Parliament in August.